Trade union and civil rights leaders in the United States continue to demonstrate Monday in the city of Los Angeles to demand the departure of immigration and customs enforcement agents and the National Guard from the city. In Venezuela, candidates began to register for the municipal elections to be held on July 27, 2025. Several countries reject Israel's hijacking of the Freedom Fleet ship Madeline, bound for Gaza, and held the Zionist regime responsible for the safety of the activist on board. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Trade union and civil rights leaders in the United States continue to demonstrate Monday in the city of Los Angeles to demand the departure of immigration and customs enforcement agents and the National Guard from the city. The protesters gathered outside the city's Metropolitan Detention Center, chanting "Stop the deportations, free them all," and National Guard out of LA. They also reportedly chanted shame at the row of law enforcement officers dressed in riot gear standing in front of the building. Other protesters held signs with messages like "Eyes out of LA," as well as waving flags from Mexico and other nations. The demonstrations are part of the reaction to Trump's repressive and xenophobic policies carried out during the past month in the context of an increasingly criminalizing speech against migrants. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum demanded that the United States respect the human rights of migrants after violent incidents in that country. The Mexican leader condemned the violence that occurred after immigration raids carried out over the weekend in Los Angeles, California, and expressed her support for the Mexican community in the United States. Furthermore, Sheinbaum rejected violent acts from protesters, calling on the Mexican community to act peacefully and not to fall for provocations. In this context, the Mexican head of state urged the U.S. authorities for all immigration procedures to be carried out with respect for human dignity and due process.
The Mexican government reiterates its unwavering commitment to the protection and defense of the human rights of Mexicans living overseas, regardless of their immigration status. In this sense, we make a respectful but firm call to United States authorities for all immigration procedures to be carried out in adherence to due process within a framework of respect for human dignity and the rule of law.
Massive power outage in the city capital, Santiago, which left more than 80,000 homes without energy. According to Chile's private electricity company, Enel, a failure outside its system was responsible for the incident, which left at least 7 communities without power. Investigations are underway to determine the causes of the outage, while efforts are being made to restore the services to the affected areas. Chilean social, territorial and humanitarian organizations asked the government Monday to speed up the investigations into the disappearance 7 months ago of Mapuche leader Julia Chuñil. The organization's representatives gathered outside the regional prosecutor's office of Los Rios in Valdivia to demand justice and more attention to Chuñil's case. The relatives of the missing Mapuche leader thanked the organization for their support and pointed out that they have been victims of harassment, referring to the nation's justice system as class-biased and inoperative. The 73-year-old indigenous leader disappeared on November 8, 2024. Her village neighbors describe her as a loyal defender of the environment and her community. The Colombian government ordered increased security for the country's political leaders following the assassination attempt of presidential pre-candidate Miguel Uribe. President Gustavo Petro held a meeting with the country's police officials to discuss new measures to guarantee the safety of the opposition. On Monday, high-level meetings are expected to continue to define security strategies for all political actors in the country amid investigations to identify the perpetrators of the attack against Miguel Uribe. The Colombian president will hold also a meeting with the Electoral Guarantees Commission, members of the government and various political parties in a call to establish a peace plan. In Colombia, the Attorney General's office will charge a 14-year-old teenager with attempted murder and illegal possession of firearms after shooting presidential pre-candidate Miguel Uribe. The arrest was legalized by a judge and the case is moving forward under the juvenile criminal responsibility system. Although he cannot be sent to a regular prison, he could face up to 8 years of imprisonment in a specialized care center. At the same time, the investigation continues with raids on family members' homes and review of videos of the political rally where the attack occurred. Authorities are seeking to establish the involvement of others as well as the motive behind the incident. In the meantime, health authorities reported that the political leader remains in critical condition. According to the report, Uribe has responded poorly to medical interventions and treatments. However, doctors emphasized that they will not cease the efforts necessary to ensure his recovery. At this time, the prognosis for Miguel Uribe's health remains unclear and his condition is extremely serious. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, candidates began to register for the municipal elections to be held on July 27, 2025. The National Electoral Council published Sunday the electoral timetable. Candidates will be able to submit their applications starting this Monday, June 9th. Electoral authorities also emphasized that the processes include the option of self-nomination and the formation of voter groups. In this regard, the electoral body stated that interested parties should go to the National Office of Political Participation located at the headquarters of in Caracas Square or to the regional electoral offices. Diplomat Wu Hancheng, member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and Minister of the Department of Social Work, arrived Monday in Venezuela as part of an official visit aimed at strengthening political ties with the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, PSUV. The Chinese leader was received by Vice President of International Relations of the PSUV, Rander Peña, who was representing President Nicolás Maduro, and the Secretary General of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello. Chinese officials' visit is focused on consolidating the all-weather strategic partnership signed by both governments in 2023. Currently, Venezuela and China have implemented over 600 cooperation deals in key sectors such as energy, technology, infrastructure, and social development. The United Socialist Party of Venezuela informed Monday that more than 155,000 people have been proposed as Great Patriotic Poll candidates for the municipal elections to be held on July 27th. The party's Secretary General Diosdado Cabello detailed that almost 50% of the nominations are women. Cabello highlighted the leading role of Venezuelan women in these democratic processes of the country, which he said had increased after the arrival of the Bolivarian Revolution. The political leader also stressed the unity shown by the Great Patriotic Poll during all the country's elections and the victories achieved by the political coalition against the opposition in the last year. The July elections will decide on 335 mayoral posts and 2,471 local council seats.
155, 875 people more than the army. 155, 875 people were nominated for these posts that will be at stake on July 27. 49.8% are women and 52% are men. We won.
Teachers' protests continue in Panama, demanding the repeal of the controversial Law 462, which reforms the Social Security Fund, and they assure that only with that they will return to the classrooms. The indefinite strike started by the sector on April 23rd will continue even though the Comptroller's Office announced that the teachers will not receive their salaries. The teachers have scheduled a rally at the Carmen Church, followed by a march to the National Assembly to insist on their demand. The government's response has been sharp. President José Raúl Molina does not plan to repeal the law, nor to dialogue about it, neither at the national nor at the provincial level. The International Labour Organization, ILO, expressed its solidarity with Panamanian construction industry unions and their struggle against the policies of the government of José Raúl Molina. The 113th conference of the ILO, held in Geneva, Switzerland, condemned the escalation of government harassment against union leaders as part of the repression of demonstrations against Law 462 of the Social Security Fund. The organization stressed that what is happening in Panama sends a message far beyond its borders and stressed that the undermining of the right to strike represents a direct threat to trade union freedoms. In this context, the ILO highlighted that Panama is once again on the list of 24 countries that violate labor rights and is being cited for serious non-compliance with its obligations as established in the convention signed with the organization. Also in Panama, the population of the town of Chitré in the northeastern part of the province of Azuero is demanding a response due to the lack of water. 14 days after the water crisis has officially reported, the high levels of contamination in the La Villa River, the main source of water supply, have added to the effects in the area. Several community spokespersons warned of the total paralysis of the 4 water treatment plants, which has caused a generalized shortage of water supply. We have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A humanitarian convoy named Maghreb's Resolve departed from Tunisia with thousands of volunteers to demand an end to the genocide and for humanitarian aid to be allowed into the entire Gaza Strip. This Monday, the caravans set off for the Palestinian enclave to try to break the blockade. They will cross Libya and Egypt on their way to the Rafah border crossing to deliver humanitarian aid. Over 7,000 volunteers from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Mauritania and Egypt take part in the humanitarian action. The initiative also supports the Freedom Flotilla seized by Zionist forces. The International Committee to Break the Siege of the Gaza Strip called for more help, and about 30 countries in Europe, South America and Southeast Asia will answer the call. The crew members of the Freedom Fleet ship Madeline are still kidnapped by the Israeli regime after the occupation forces besieged and assaulted them. Following the terrorist incursion, previously recorded crew members' videos were released, requesting the immediate involvement of their governments and parliaments.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas condemned the hijacking of the humanitarian flotilla bound for Gaza and held Israel responsible for the safety of the activists on board. In statements, the Palestinian group urged the United Nations and international organizations not only to condemn this kidnapping, but also to take action against Israel for its continued rights violations in Palestine. Hamas reaffirmed its support for these activists who have remained firm in their solidarity with the Palestinian cause despite threats from the occupation. Hamas emphasized that these actions confirm that Gaza is not alone. The United Nations Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Territories, Francesca Albanese, urged the UK government to seek guarantees from the Israeli authorities for the crew of the Freedom Flotilla. The Marlin ship sailed under the British flag, which is why the rapporteur is asking Keir Starmer's government to guarantee the release of the 12 crew members. She also calls for the flotilla to complete its mission, as Israel has no authority over Gaza. The crew members of the flotilla remain kidnapped by the Israeli government, and its defense minister Israel Katz said on Monday that they will all have to watch a video from October 7, 2023. After Israel intercepted the Marlin ship, La France Insoumise party called on the people to mobilize in support of the Freedom Flotilla International Coalition. The left-wing party expressed its outrage at Israel's efforts to obstruct the delivery of aid to the Gaza Strip. The Marlin was carrying food and basic supplies for the besieged Gaza when they were intercepted and kidnapped by the occupation forces. In Spain, citizens held a rally in front of the Foreign Ministry demanding the release of the Freedom Flotilla coalition intercepted by the Zionist Israeli army in international waters. The demonstrators expressed their rejection of the assault and kidnapping of the crew members of the Freedom Flotilla. They also reiterated their condemnation of the Israeli offensive against the Palestinian people for more than 19 consecutive months, which has left a death toll of more than 54,500 Palestinians. Moreover, the protesters demanded the Spanish government to break diplomatic and commercial relations with Israel and rejected the sale of arms to the Zionist state. For their part, social and political organizations have denounced that the Israeli regime has violated maritime humanitarian law by hijacking a ship loaded with humanitarian aid. The government of Venezuela condemned the hijacking of the Freedom Flotilla by the Zionist regime of Israel while reiterating its rejection of the genocide against the Palestinian people. Through a communique, the executive expressed, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela strongly condemns the hijacking of the ship Marlin, intercepted in international waters by the Israeli occupation forces while it was transporting humanitarian aid bound for Gaza. This is an act of piracy and aggression against international solidarity which sought to bring food, medicine and hope to the Palestinian people. In another paragraph, the document denounced this new outrage occurs within the framework of the ongoing genocide that the government of Benjamin Netanyahu is carrying out with total impunity against the Palestinian civilian population. Israel executes a planned and sustained massacre protected by the complicit silence of the Western powers. At the end, the text sentenced, preventing the entry of humanitarian aid is not only a violation of international law, it is a part of the scaffolding of systematic extermination that Israel imposes on a people that resists. Venezuela demands the immediate release of the kidnapped activists, the end of the blockade on Gaza, and the cessation of the criminal Israeli aggression against Palestine. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that its air defense systems shot down 49 Ukrainian drones in the last 24 hours over 7 regions of the country. The action included areas far from the front lines, such as Nizhny Novgorod and the Republic of Chuvastia. In the latter, 2 drones struck an industrial plant without causing any casualties but forced operations to be suspended. Due to the incidents, several airports temporarily suspended flights for safety reasons. In this regard, Russian authorities report a sustained increase in Ukrainian drone attacks against energy, industrial and military infrastructure in bordered areas and in the interior of the country. On Monday, the first group of Russian servicemen aged under 25 were freed in accordance with the agreements reached in Istanbul between the nation and Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry informed of the operation, stating that the servicemen were released from an area controlled by the Kyiv regime and are currently in Belarus, where they are being given the necessary psychological and medical assistance prior to their return to Russia. In addition, the authority unveiled it had transferred a similar number of Ukrainian prisoners of war, and Moscow and Kyiv agreed on a larger exchange of prisoners during the second round of negotiations held in Istanbul, Turkey on June 2nd. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.